you remember correctly back from Section 2 was all about the northern colonies. So we got 3-2 is the north. Now we have 3-3 is the middle, and then we'll travel even further south in Section 3-4 to get to the southern colonies. And this one is a very short section. There's only 4 real important things in it, and those include William Penn and pacifists. And remember that pacifists will mean that you pass on using fists. These people are non-violent. And this is key to the area where we currently live in. This is a very important section for our area. We go to the Pennsbury School District, literally named after William Penn. And this guy lived down the street. You can go to his house. You probably, if you've been to Pennsbury or in Pennsbury School District since you were in kindergarten, you've probably have been there. You can go and you can walk through his house. You can walk the grounds where he actually lived. And William Penn is a huge reason why the middle colonies exist the way that they do today. But first, we have to learn about why New York is New York and how the Dutch made the worst trade of all time. The Dutch had owned the land between the middle and southern, or the northern and southern colonies. England had basically taken over the north part of the East Coast, and then also the southern part of the East Coast, minus Florida, because that was Spanish. Right above them, they had in Virginia and the Carolinas and Georgia area was also British. The Dutch was all of the middle part, what we know today as basically New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware area. And the Dutch had control over the shipping center that basically was the shipping center for all of the Americas, which is Manhattan Island. Today we would know this basically as New York City. And New York City and Manhattan Island have a very useful port and useful harbors that if you just drive your giant boat straight up into the land, you can go all the way up to the land. There's no beach there. It's just deep water and then land. Very different from if you've ever been to the Jersey Shore, where if you're driving your boat, you can't just go straight up onto land. There ends up being a whole bunch of sand. There's that gradual increase of sand before you hit land. So you can't just drive a boat straight up there. So that's why the Jersey Shore isn't good for harbors, but New York is, because there is no beach there. You can just go straight right into it. And because it's such a good spot, England does what England always says, is England says, hey, it's a really great piece of land, I want it. And we learned in Section 2 how they're willing to just wipe out entire Native American tribes to take the land that they want. So the English want Manhattan Island, because Manhattan Island, with its great trading center, will basically give you a lot of money, because you're going to make a lot of taxes when you can control the trade on that island. And since they want it, they send a fleet to attack Manhattan Island, and the Dutch are completely unprepared for this. When a whole bunch of warships show up and you have cannons facing your island, they don't have any way of protecting themselves. You need to remember that they don't have the ability to just call someone over in Europe and say, hey, Netherlands, we need help, come protect us. That's going to take minimally 10 months at this point, where they're going to have to write a letter, put it on a boat. The boat's going to have to make its way all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, all the way back home to the Netherlands, and then they'll have to be able to prepare for war and send people back. That is a 10-month minimum process, where today that could happen within a day. So since they're completely unprepared for battle, they just surrender. And they surrender Manhattan Island to the British for basically nothing. They get to escape with their lives, but they don't get anything out of the deal. So they end up losing what ends up being one of the greatest trading ports in the history of the world, and now a city that is one of the greatest cities in the world for nothing. When King Charles, we're now on King Charles II, King Charles Part 2, gets all this land, he ends up giving a huge chunk of it to his brother. His brother was the Duke of York, and you can think of the Duke of York as being the mayor of York. It's the person that's in charge of that city or that territory. So the Duke of York gets this land, and because he, once again, not very creative, and lucky for us, he just decides to name the island and the trading center New York, which we're going to get to New Jersey, New Hampshire. All of these things were places over in England that they just put new in front of. And we're going to get to what a proprietary colony is in chapter 4. But it's basically a monarchy. One person, the owner, gets to make all of the rules. They own all the lands and make all government laws. And this is something that is different from a lot of the other colonies we've looked at so far. A lot of them set up representative governments. They want to rep the pub. They want to represent the public people. This is different because this is more along the lines of a monarchy, where it was a king who gave the land to his brother, who is a part of that whole royal government system where they're going to be the ones making decisions. The Duke of York is at least a little bit nice, though, and the Duke of York gives away some of the land that he did not want. The Duke of York gives the land between the Hudson and Delaware rivers to two guys, and they name that land New Jersey, which is after the islands in the English Channel. And this, down here, is kind of a big deal here. There's no natural harbors in New Jersey. So that's a key part that we talked about a little bit earlier. That's a difference between Manhattan Island or New York City today and the Jersey coast. You cannot just drive boats up. One of the other parts about New Jersey is that the soil isn't great for large crops. You can grow corn, you can grow tomatoes, and you can grow blueberries in the sandy soil in the southern half. It's the blueberry capital of the world. But you can't really grow large crops of a vast variety of food options. So it makes it really difficult to live in New Jersey. And because of that, they decide to offer a whole bunch of really awesome things. It's a going out of business sale. Please come to New Jersey and we'll give you a bunch of cool stuff. We'll give you a large tract of land, and that just is a piece of land. We'll give you freedom of religion, which is one of those key parts that not a lot of people are getting when they're coming to the New World, even though they thought they would be getting it. So now in New Jersey, you can get freedom of religion. Trial by jury is a huge piece of this, because before this, you would just have one guy who would be in charge of deciding if people were guilty, usually the king or the duke or whoever was in charge of your territory, and you could easily buy them off. If you didn't like someone and you wanted them to just disappear and go away, if you had enough money, you could pay that one person, and they could just say that the other person was guilty. But now we have a trial by jury, which becomes a part of our government that we have today, and you can be a part of the jury process once you turn 18. And then they, of course, have a representative government. They want to rep the pub. They want to offer people the ability to help make laws, help set tax rates, help decide who and what gets done. This is a huge process where you get to be a part of the government instead of having one person be in charge. And even though they offer all of this really cool, awesome stuff, it still doesn't make New Jersey profitable because they still can't make money. They still can't grow stuff. They can't sell stuff. They can't trade stuff, which is really the only ways you could have made money back in the late 1600s, early 1700s. There is no really other way to do that. So this colony fails and eventually goes back to the king as a royal colony, which is what Jamestown had happened to them, and a few other colonies that we'll learn about this year have happened to them as well. And then we get to the real fun part with William Penn, the guy who we are currently sitting in his school district. He is given the land inland from the Delaware River, which is basically where we are currently at today. And this is a really interesting story because what had happened was King Charles Part II had a whole bunch of war debt. So he goes to the Penn family and asks for money. So William Penn's dad is rather wealthy, and Penn's dad gives King Charles II a loan. And then King Charles will eventually pay the Penn family back. And the way that this happened was that William Penn was really annoying to the king, because William Penn would constantly talk to everyone in England about being a Quaker society. And the Quaker society calls themselves the Society of Friends, where everyone is equal. And that should make sense to you that King Charles II wouldn't like that. King Charles II is a king, and by the definition of being a king, you're supposed to be better than your subjects. You're higher than them in power structure. You have more power. You're more intelligent. You get to make the decisions. And the people below you are not as good as you. Where the Society of Friends, we're all equal. So as William Penn's running around England telling people we're all equal, the king is trying to make that stop. He's trying to make that thought process go away. So instead, he says to William Penn, I have this great piece of new land over in the New World. You can have it. You can go an entire ocean away. You can set up your own society. Whatever it is that you want to do with your society, you can do. You can have it be a Quaker society, but you can go a whole ocean away and stay as far away from me as you possibly can. And William Penn takes him up on that deal, and now he's able to go over to the New World and set up that society that he believes is correct. And a major part of their belief system is that they are pacifists, they are non-violent, they pass on fists. If you would walk up and punch a pacifist, instead of fighting back, they would probably say thank you and walk away. They believe that violence is never the solution to an answer or to a problem, so they want to instead talk about things and discuss those details that you are disagreeing with them on, where you're willing to fight them and they are not. Penn goes to the New World, and he is responsible for setting up and basically designing the entire city of Philadelphia, where this is going to be considered this city of brotherly love, which makes total sense now if you've heard about it, because of his whole idea that the society should be everyone that's equal. So you may have been hearing before the city of brotherly love, which current day Philadelphia does not represent that so much, but back then in the late 1600s, that's what William Penn envisioned it to be. It was going to be a society where everyone was equal. He writes Pennsylvania's first constitution, and basically on any test, wherever it says who did something first in Pennsylvania, it's Penn. It's literally his state. It's named after him, and we have all of the rules and stuff based off of what he believed in. So he writes the first constitution, which we know is a set of laws. And he, because of the whole pacifist nature, says that the land belongs to the Native Americans. So instead of killing them and taking their land, he would negotiate treaties with them. He would trade with them for land. Even though the king said, hey, this is all your land, it's mine, you can have it for free, that's not what William Penn necessarily believed. He believed the Native Americans were there first, and that he would instead pay them for that land, not just take it from them. And because of those William Penn beliefs of everyone being equal and society being a society of friends, that we're all going to have the same amount of power, it attracted a lot of diverse groups of people, that you were able to have people from all over the world, like the English, the Dutch, the Welsh, the Irish, and the Germans, settle in the area that we currently live in today, which would explain why when you look at people in our area, vast majority of them come from English and Irish and German heritage, that we have a place in Philadelphia called Germantown, where a lot of Germans settled all the way back in the 16 and 1700s. So this is something that explains a lot of our culture that we have today. And then just as an interesting side fact, that the William Penn people, the people that have lived here with William Penn, had the Swedish people settle below Pennsylvania in Delaware. And the University of Delaware's colors are the exact same colors as the Swedish flag. So that kind of all makes sense once you understand the history of why these things exist the way they are today. They have roots all the way back to the late 1600s and the early 1700s.